Hi, Sandy Wyllie. Today, I'm going to talk about hysteria. What is hysteria? I think back in Freud's time, they knew a lot about it then, or they labeled women who were emotional as hysterical. And it was always looked upon as psychotic. But I'm not going to give you back in those times. I'm going to give you in my times. I grew up with two hysterical parents, a narcissistic mother and a schizophrenic father, who were always in hysterics, meaning they had no grasp at all on their emotion. Now, as a borderline personality, that's me, I run hot and cold, What I'm talking about hysterical is, it's kind of a psychosis where you just have no grip, no handle on your emotion. Like, for instance, my mother, right? If I spilled milk, what happens? I mentioned this example in my last video. I would just tell my child to go get a paper towel and wipe it up. But like my mother would go hysterical, swearing and cussing and hitting me and saying, like, over exaggerating the incident, saying, like, you ruined my whole kitchen, now the effing floor is all sticky, and she'd be like screaming. I'm out in the public spot, so I'm not going to start screaming, but she'd be screaming, she'd be swearing, she'd be blowing something small, like a child knocked over a glass of milk reaching for the salt shaker on the table. Something small like that, not a whole carton of milk, just like a small glass of milk. And like screaming and swearing and saying how, like, it's the end of the world, the whole kitchen is sticky, now she's going to have to spend hours like wiping all that mess up and washing the whole floor all over again. It's going to take hours to dry. And she'd be like, pulling her hair out and, like, out of control. That's hysterics. Someone who is out of control, they can't handle their emotions. And I've been hysterical too. I'll talk about that too. Rage can make you hysterical. It makes me hysterical when I'm enraged, and we'll talk about that too. Now, my father, how he went hysterical is, my father was a paranoid schizophrenic. So he thought that everyone was trying to kill us, being paranoid, thinking everyone's out to get you. And that's how he raised me. So he would go into these psychotic fits where he'd be enraged and hysterical, like, don't touch that door, it's triggered. If you touch that door, a bomb is going to detonate a bomb, and we're all going to die. So he'd be, screaming this, he'd be like swearing this, and he would be hysterical, thinking, we can't go in the car because the car is rigged. As soon as I turn the gas, it's going to explode. This is how I grew up. So that's hysterical. It's just like the person doesn't have a grip on reality. The person cannot, they're over exaggerating, or they're in psychosis where they're hallucinating. I've never hallucinated, but I have been quite hysterical myself, not just like from my childhood, but personally, when I get post-traumatic stress disorder, I'll go hysterical, which means I'll be triggered from something that happened in the past. And I did another video on that where this staff member reminded me of the staff member that severely beat my son. And he started laughing and teasing my son just the same way that that staff member that beat my son up with bruises all over his body and a black eye. So I got triggered, so I was going through an episode of post-traumatic stress disorder, and then I became hysterical, screaming, yelling, swearing, telling my husband that staff member is never going to touch my son again. I mean, I did a video on this, so I don't want to repeat myself too much here. But, if you suffer post-traumatic stress disorder, if you suffer schizophrenia, borderline personality disorder, there's lots of things where one can be in hysterics. Hysteria alone, I think it might be its own diagnosis. You don't necessarily have to have any of these other disorders to have hysteria, right? You don't have to be a borderline, you don't have to be schizophrenic to be hysterical. You just, like your average person might be walking down the street and see a little kid run in front of a car, and then the car run over that child. Now, at that moment, seeing something horrific like that, a car running over a child, like you couldn't help the child, you're just walking by and you witness the car running, the child running and the car going over, hitting the child, and the child is got, bleeding, or, and you go hysterical. Oh my God. Sometimes you can't even react. You might even be able to, in certain circumstances, be able to have run out and save that child, but because you're frozen in hysteria, like, oh my God, like it freezes you right there. It's not like you're a bad person or anything like that. It's not that you don't want to help someone. It's just like you see something and you might see, like, you might be walking along and you might, in a bad section of town or down the subway, and you might see a guy, stick a knife in someone, and you might just freeze up, and become, hysterical, like inside your, like this. It's not always, hysteria isn't always like you think of the typical emotional woman who's screaming and going out of her mind. It is, but it is like a loss of control of emotions, and sometimes it can just freeze you right there in your tracks, right? I just thought it was important to bring up hysteria because I grew up in a hysterical household, and I'm sure many of you, especially if you have borderline personality disorder, there must be a good handful of you that have grown up in a hysterical household. I don't think that you get borderline personality disorder by growing up in a very calming, nurturing environment. I didn't. I had two parents that were always hysterical, and as a result, I became hysterical. I had no control over my emotions, and this affected my son. Alex was in the hospital for years and then in residential places because of his brain damage. But even before he got that sickness, he saw me hysterical. But Austin he's still living at home because he's trying to pay off his student loans. He sees me hysterical. He's grown up seeing his mom out of control all the time. Especially when I was dating that psychologist Jim that took advantage of me. I would always go hysterical because he would drive me crazy. Jim would just drive me nuts. And if you watch some of my other videos, you'd see, like, he was hysterical. He would often go into a fury, It's not just women that go hysterical, too. Although, we're always blamed, or we're always, it's always considered like, oh, women are overly emotional. But you know what? That's not true. That's really being prejudiced, because it's not just us women who can go hysterical. It's anyone at any age who's been through extreme trauma in their lives. That, and it's not just borderlines, right? It's not just paranoid schizophrenics. It can be anyone that's witnessed something horrific, like I just explained. Your average person who doesn't have much, who's healthy mentally, can just, witness something horrific and become hysterical. It can happen to anyone. So, like, how do you get a good control over that, It's very, very hard when you get into, like, the eye of the storm. Like, it's kind of like a tornado, Well, how do you control a tornado when it's like the black funnel, right? Taking off the rooftops. It's like, yeah, the black funnel. How do you control that? A lot of people, go on medication to control it. They go into therapy. Unfortunately, what I do, I have a lot of intense rage, especially lately because of what happened with my psychologist and with my son being badly beaten and kicked out of his home. Um, I have deep, deep rage. So I'm not telling you to do this, but what I do to quell that rage is I turn to alcohol and I drink, like 3 or 4 drinks every night. That's not the answer, okay? I'm not sitting here and saying, yeah, just get drunk and you'll be fine. That's not right, and that's not okay, turning into an alcoholic. But it has helped push down that severe rage I feel. And whenever I feel hysterical, like the night that they called and told me my son was assaulted, I went hysterical. I took the phone and I started going, and I don't even know what I was saying. I was saying, I'm going to get lawyers, I'm getting the police. I started, swearing, yelling. I took a bottle of vodka that night. And I started drinking and drinking and drinking. I said, I want to kill myself. I want to kill myself. I don't want to live anymore. I want to die. They hurt my son. I don't want to live anymore. And my son was really worried that I was going to. If you drink and drink and drink, it's called alcohol poisoning. And yes, it does kill you. And yes, you do die. And that night, I tried to kill myself. I'm coming on here, I've never told this to anyone. In fact, a lot of people are saying that doing these videos is helpful to them. So I said, okay, if I'm gonna come on and do these mental health videos, and people are saying that by opening up about what I'm going through is helpful, then let me put it all on the table for you guys. And let me tell you, exactly, the pain I'm in or what I'm going through. I took a bottle of vodka and I kept drinking and drinking and drinking, and I think, I think my son had to grab her from me, and then I just passed out. I passed out. And the next day, I couldn't even lift my head up. It was the worst hangover in my life. The whole day. It wasn't like, how you get a hangover in the morning for drinking too much the night before? This lasted the whole entire day. Never had a hangover like that in my life. But that wasn't, I was just hysterical. I just learned my son was assaulted. My severely handicapped son, severely handicapped. My son is an invalid, he needs help with everything. And this person who was supposed to be taking care of him brutally beat him up. He had bruises all over him. He had a black eye. And I won't go into more detail about when I visited him and saw him with that black eye. It was one hysteric episode after another. And the only way to quell that was to drink, 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 drink. That's the only way I could stop the hysteria. That's the only way I could suppress the rage. Now, I'm telling you that's the wrong way. I'm not coming out here and advocating alcoholism and telling you that's the way to go. No, that's not the right way to go. It isn't. There's other ways. Then why aren't I doing it? Well, I have been. I've been doing videos. I've been writing. I'm a published poet. I have poems in magazines. I've written many books on Amazon, and they're in Barnes and Noble. So writing helps it. Listening to music. That's why I love doing the karaoke's, because that helps. That's a good outlet, like doing karaoke, because it's very hard to be upset or angry when you're singing or dancing. Like, do you know, how can anyone dance if they're uptight, right? Just like, just doing that loosens your joints up. It kind of like gets you in a better place, because you're singing. It's hard to be like singing stiffly like this. So, like writing, keep a journal. That's another way. I have positive ways of dealing with it, the rage, and I have negative ways. The positive ways are writing, getting my poems published, writing books, getting my books sold on Amazon, doing these videos to help people and tell you you're not alone in your struggles. That's the positive side. But the negative side, is drinking the alcohol. So I have positive ways of dealing with it, and I have negative ways of dealing with it. And I'm just sharing this with you. Maybe you can pick up some of the positive sides. And I mean, the negative, drinking the alcohol is going to ruin my health, right? Eventually, alcohol can damage your liver. My father died of liver cancer. So there you go. I'm not doing myself any favors by doing that. But yeah, I mean, I have this system of like all morning I exercise. I'm in good form. I'm fit. Like I said, my writing, my videos. Like I have this system where I do well to get a grip on my emotions. But then when I go home after the whole day, after like, going out to the library or such, then I seriously want to get my brain from stop thinking. People ask me, why do you drink? Drinking stops the thinking. At least in my case. As soon as the alcohol starts, affecting me, it kind of makes me feel, and then I don't think of all the things I'm really, upset about. Yeah, I mean, it's not good. I know people have written and said, that's, and I understand, I'm not doing the right thing, and I'm just telling you, it's hard, it's very hard. But yeah, hysteria, I'm one that, even my son said, Mom, you get hysterical all the time. And it's true, I don't have a grip on my emotions. And it's hard that my son had to grow up seeing his mom hysterical. I never took it out on him like my mother did on me. I would get hysterical about other people, like my psychologist, I'd get hysterical about them. Or he would hear me because we have a small ranch house. It's very small. The rooms are small. If you're in one room, you can hear someone talking in another room, unless they're whispering. But I was screaming at Jim and Dick on the phone. They were getting me so upset, and my son saw me this upset. He heard me screaming and being hysterical. And this was unhealthy for him to grow up like that, Yeah, I feel really bad about that. So this is my video on hysteria. I used to do yoga. Anyone do yoga out there? Yoga helps. It helps center you, and it really helps you focus, and it helps center you. And yeah, I never really got back to doing yoga. The yoga studio I go to is like on the same street as Jim's house. Now Jim is dead, so I'll never run into him again, unless when I go to hell. Might meet him there. But I stopped going anyway, even though I was never going to run into Jim. I have very bad arthritis. If you see that, can you see that? I don't know if you can really see the difference in my, see how that's all puffy? That's arthritis. And a lot of those yoga positions, you have to use your hands like that, to balance you, and you have to put pressure on it. And also I have arthritis in the knees too. I'm old. I'm going to be 58, I got very, very bad arthritis. And I'm also allergic to anti-inflammatory drugs. I can't take Advil, so that's why I can't take anything for this. I just suffer. But, yeah, it's tough. It's tough when you're hysterical. It's tough suppressing the rage when you grew up with people who hurt you, and then when you went for help and your son, is in a place where they were supposed to help him, and instead they beat him instead of helping him. And it's hard. When you went to psychologists, you went to therapy to get help with your emotions, and what did they do? You know what they did. If you watch my videos, or read some of my books, So it's tough. It's tough on my son living at home too. I'm doing better now. Trying to keep my emotions in check in front of my son. Yeah, but it's not good that he sees his mom going for, several drinks every evening too. I might be quiet like that. I'm not. I know there are loud drunks out there, but I'm not one of them. Yeah. Yeah, I don't get loud when I'm drunk. I just pass out, fall asleep on the couch. That's what I do. I fall asleep on the couch. But yeah, when you feel that rage, it's like, and I still feel it, but I'm trying to push it down, and it's not working all the time. So it's not like I'm coming on here to give you all the answers, because I don't have them. I'm just coming on here to share what I'm going through, and for opening up the path for you to share what you go through. And some people have done that, and I'm really proud of you if you have in the comments told me what you're going through. And keep doing it. You know, keep sharing with me, because I love that the most. Okay.